know you can't get enough of Rainier Avenue Radio World.
My name is Josephine, and I live in Renton, Washington. Even after getting COVID in 2020, I still did not want to have anything to do with the vaccination. There was much fear in the African American community. Before you do anything, pray. And make sure that you're praying to get the answer and not praying to get your answer. Reconsider, asking yourself why you are hesitant about getting it. To learn more, please visit reconsiderwa.org.
The Beat of the Fox with Nastiness is back on K-Fox Night Beat.
Yo, what's the deal? It's the legendary Hall of Fame DJ Mixmaster Ice from UTFO.
What's up? Who you thought this is? This is Sir Mix-a-Lot.
And this is Terry Lewis.
And I'm Grand Mixer GMS.
What's up, y'all? This is DJ Third Degree.
This is JJ Hudson from the High Children family.
Sunday nights from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's K-Fox Night Beat with DJ Nastiness.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music. Rainier Avenue Radio World.
That's not noise.
Hey, welcome to the Fitness Corner. I'm your host, Mark Bryant, and you're going to get a whole total body workout on my show, starting off with a warm-up, aerobics, strength training, cool down, and stretching every Friday from 11:30 to 12 right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.
How would COVID vaccines work in your body? Here are 3 things to know. Number 1, a vaccine is basically a training session for the immune system. Vaccines teach the immune system to look for the key features of a virus. So when a virus does show up, it's ready to fight it off. Number 2, a vaccine gives your body a plan to recognize the virus. Then your immune system starts preparing by making antibodies, or fighter cells, that stay in your blood as protection in case the virus tries to invade. What this means is you get immunity against the disease without having to get sick first. Number 3, when enough people's bodies know how to fight off a virus, it has nowhere to go. That slows the spread. When people get a vaccine, we're able to stop the spread quicker and get closer to ending the pandemic. To learn more, go to covidvaccinewa.org. A message from the state of Washington.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio World. Check us out on social media. Facebook and Instagram, Rainier Avenue Radio World, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
Right. Hey, we have a great show coming up today. I have a very special guest. I'm very honored to have the Honorable Tukwila City Council member, councilperson, councilwoman, Cynthia Delostrino Johnson. We're going to bring her on quickly, but I'm going to do some intro. Thank you very much, council member or councilwoman or councilperson, Delostrino Johnson. Hey, she's a local young lady. I went to Garfield High School. We're going to talk about all of that too. But hey, AAPI month, which has also been expanded to include Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders. When did it start? Well, it started actually during the Bush administration in the 1990s. But since 1978, they've been kind of celebrating not Japanese, but Asian contributions to this country. And the reason why they picked May, they believe May 1843 was when the first Japanese Asian came to this country, but also May to honor the work and the contributions of the Chinese laborers who helped build the Transcontinental Railroad from the west to the east. And they picked them from the west because that was the port of entry, primarily the west coast for the Chinese. They estimated that there was a total of about 4,000, maybe more, workers along the line that went from west to east. Promontory Point is where it ended right there because the other group was coming west from the east. In other words, two-thirds of the workers, they estimate, were Chinese laborers. That means of the 4,000 laborers that were dedicated to this project, 2,600 were Chinese. And then there's the sad fact that they believe at least 1,200 or more died and perished along the way. So we're talking about almost half of the Chinese laborers died along the way. The railroad, the miles were built on the backs and the blood of the Chinese laborers, and there were others, but they were the primary force to work on this railroad. So May is picked because of the Transcontinental Railroad and because they believe the first Japanese or Asian, not just Japanese, Asian in this country. But let's go back in history. There is evidence that as early as the 15 to 1600s, Spanish galleons were making the way in the Mississippi, in the bayous of Louisiana, Mississippi, etc. And many Filipinos jumped ship. Why Filipinos? Because Spain had taken over the Philippines as its colonial possession. Nations of the world, England, Germany, Spain, especially the Spanish Armada, their powerful navies are what led the way to colonization around the world. So, but we know Filipinos did jump ship. They did set up, and there are generations of Filipinos going way back, 500, maybe 400 years or more. And then also on the West Coast, Spaniards involved and brought Filipinos as indentured, basically slaves, to work in the whatever domestics, fields, whatever, on the West Coast. Remember, California was a Spanish possession, and so, anyways, there's evidence of that, and that goes into the 15, 16, 1700s. So, anyways, there's a long history of Asian involvement in this country, going back to the original 1500s, 1600s with the Filipinos, and then later on the Japanese, Chinese, etc. So right now, the Filipinos in Seattle, they were once the largest population, but now they've been replaced by the Chinese. The smaller population is the Japanese, and because of the fact that, many of the Japanese are, let's be honest, are dying out. So anyways, I want to bring on my very special guest. I'm very honored to have her. Very busy, a multitasking young person, young woman, mother, homemaker, chief cook and bottle washer for the kids, but also involved in politics, is on the Tukwila City Council, the only Filipina ever elected to the Tukwila City Council. And this is, I think you're on your first or second term. We'll talk about that. Come on in, Cynthia. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, John.
You're not in Hawaii, are you?
No, this is actually a picture that I took in the Philippines when I went the last time I was there in 2019.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That seems like forever ago because of the pandemic, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah, they just opened up the Philippines for travel this year. So my parents will be going. And yeah, hopefully next year I'll be able to go and visit again.
And like I said, I had to set the record straight. My research indicated Filipinos were the actual first Asians to this country because of the Spanish colonization of the Philippines. And it was because of the Spanish Armada, the most powerful navy at that time, until they got beat by the British. And then the British did the same thing. They colonized the world. The sun never sets on the British Empire because around the world they owned, whatever. They took over. They didn't own it. They took over. But Filipinos were also on the West Coast, California, and into Mexico. So it's a fascinating story. I wish I could trace going back that 500 or so years, but and I'm not that old anyway, so that's okay. But but I know you can trace your background, and I was going to ask you. So, Cynthia Delostrino Johnson, local individual, local product, went to schools here, went to law school here. She is a lawyer, folks, so I got to watch what I say. No, I'm just kidding. And this is your first term, right? Yeah, first term.
Yeah.
City Council, Tukwila. One and only person of Filipino descent to gain that office. And you ran a very successful campaign. I know I kind of snuck in and took a peek at what's going on. So let's talk about you. Growing up Are you first or second generation Filipina?
I am I think I would consider myself first generation because my parents immigrated here.
Okay.
Yeah, back in the 80s. I'm one of 5 kids, 5 girls. When my parents moved here, they had my 2 eldest sisters, and then when they came here, they had 3 more. And I'm number 4.
Oh, okay. So you got older sisters, right? Do they boss you around?
Well, they like to think they do. Probably not anymore, but when I was younger, they did.
Well, now what are they gonna do? You're a city council person; they can't boss you around. But anyway, so you grew up. Where did you grow up? What neighborhood did you grow up in? If I could ask.
I grew up in West Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah, when the bridge was still open.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There really isn't a whole lot of bridges around Tukwila. There's just a couple of overpasses and things like that. But Tukwila, hey, Tukwila, folks, ladies and gentlemen, one of the largest tax bases in the state of Washington. Why? They got that place called South Center over there. South Center Parkway. So when you talk about an area that generates a lot of tax revenue, you guys are it, right?
Yeah, sometimes people don't even believe me that there's people living in Tukwila. They think that it's only South Center, but the sales tax revenue is the largest portion of revenue that the city gets, and then property taxes next. But yeah.
Well, friends of mine that they left Seattle Police Department to go work with Tukwila. Why? The salaries were higher in Tukwila because of your tax base. Yeah, these guys said, hey, man, and we're just down the road. Anybody can commute from Seattle, South Seattle, Central Seattle to Tukwila. And guess what? Hey, and one of the guys that I went to school with at Garfield was involved in a major shootout from a guy that robbed some of the stores in Tukwila. He was in Gary Johnson or something like that. But anyways, he said the reason why he joined Tukwila Police Force is because of the higher salary. And that's based on the tax revenue. And I said, wow, that's wonderful. Well, relatively speaking. And so you've been there. This is your first term. When were you elected into office? What year was that?
I was elected in 2019. So I ran my campaign in 2019.
Right.
And then I actually was sworn in January of 2020.
2020, right.
Yeah, so it was such a crazy time to get into office for the first time as the pandemic hit. I think I sat in my council chair for 4 meetings or 4 or 5 meetings, and then everything was virtual until this year. This year we're back in the chambers now. But yeah, it's been a crazy past couple of years. I'm on my 3rd year on council, and then
4-year term? Is it a 4-year term?
4-year term.
So that's this is your first term, and you ran a very successful campaign. Was that your first campaign?
It was my first campaign. I did not think that I would ever run for office.
You defied the odds to make it your first time. That does not happen often. It happens, but not very often. So congratulations, you deserve it. I mean, what the heck? I would have voted for you. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not a Tukwila resident. And you can only vote if you live in the city of Tukwila, correct?
That's true. That's true.
Well, we want to talk about you growing up. And I know I mentioned you went to Garfield High School, James A. Garfield, and then you went to law school, Seattle U, correct? Seattle University. And that's how I got to meet you, because you were working for the commission, the state commission. And I got to marry you and Justice, gosh, there's so many justices. I mean, gosh, it's like, wow, I better watch what I say. And I did pay my parking ticket fines and all that stuff. But anyways, it was a good experience. I just wished I had more time. I couldn't do it because I was at that time working with DOJ. But you staffed that. You were actually the staffer for that commission, that committee, right? Yeah.
That was my first job out of law school.
Yeah. Very good. You did a great job. And like I said, it was, man, I met more judges. I met more prosecuting attorneys. I mean, God, it was like, oh, wow, But I know, Laura, Judge McCullough, him, and, some of the other people, like I said, Judge Yu. She became a Supreme Court justice for the state, Washington State Supreme Court. So growing up, now let me ask you this: do you speak Tagalog, Ilocano, or any of the basic languages of Filipino?
I don't. Sadly, I can understand and speak a little bit of Tagalog, but not as well as I wish.
Okay, I was gonna say, here's my introduction to Tagalog. Puntangina mo. You know what that means?
Yes, that's all you know.
That's all I know. Yeah. Well, I know.
I'll say.
Well, I know a couple things, but I won't say anything. You know how it goes, man. Growing up, I grew up when I came here from Chicago. The first families I entered, I engaged with the African American and Filipino. I mean, seriously, the Domaos, I mean, the Cordovas, the Corpuses. I mean that the Ligos. That was my neighborhood, you know. And so people Cordova, etc. So it's a small world, especially when you lived in South Seattle, not West Seattle, but South Seattle, predominantly Asian, African American, predominantly, and in the central area. So, like I said, there were a number of Filipinos that went to Garfield, that I went to Brazola, the De La Cruz. I mean, you know, I say that name, it just rolls out my tongue because the Flores is everybody that, you know, they, like I said, it's a very tight-knit community, and I love it. And there's this really great celebration called Padirirong. I think it's pronounced like that, something like that. That's really good during the summer.
Seward Park.
Seward Park, beautiful.
Yeah.
And you know, we do have a show called Phil Amp that goes to the Philippines. I think on Tuesday afternoons live.
Nice.
Yeah. It was the two leaders of that show, and you know, the personalities, Bert Caoli and Raleigh Polantan. And but I think it'll maybe Daniel put it up there who actually runs it now, but it goes live to the Philippines, and they do what they call Taglish, English and Tagalog mix. So it's beautiful. And they said, "Well, John, you got to come over to the show." I said, "Yeah, but I mean, you know, come on now. You guys ran a good show. They have music. They do. They have a guy who's a comic. I mean, he's funny. They do cultural things, which is really cool, you know. And of course, growing up, hey, who doesn't know what adobo is, and who doesn't know what pancit is? Like, you know, lumpia. I mean, that's again growing up with the families, and that's the beauty of culture in this community, wouldn't you say? So here you are, first generation Filipina, grew up in West Seattle, but you went to Garfield. You said, you know, right? Correct. And what made you decide to go into law?
Yeah, well, one thing that I don't talk about a lot or share a lot is that I actually come from a family of lawyers in the Philippines. So my grandpa was a judge in the Philippines, and my grandma was a lawyer. She actually worked for the Supreme Court as a clerk in the Philippines, the Filipino Supreme Court. And my mom and some of her brothers, my mom went to law school. When she came here, her law degree wasn't honored, and that's something that I see a lot in the immigrant community is that you know, people could get their degrees, could be a doctor, could be a lawyer, could be an engineer in their country of origin, and then come here and not have that education honored. So when my mom came here, she was a secretary at a law firm, you know, worked her way up to being a paralegal, but never was able to become a lawyer.
Oh man, that's
and I actually didn't want to be a lawyer, and that, you know, it's a little it's still something that I'm working through a little, just being able to seeing that what happened to my mom being so smart. She was number one in her class, but then coming here and not being able to be a lawyer like she had been trained to. And some of that, like that internal racism, that internal like discrimination that was felt when she came here, passed on through her kids. But you'll like this, because when I realized I wanted to be a lawyer, it was actually at Garfield. I think I was a junior at the time, and I had taken this class called Minorities in America. It was an elective class. It wasn't something that was required, but it was really the first time that I learned about race in America and the history of racism, discrimination, how the law was used to create that,
right?
The systemic racism. And I learned about people like Thurgood Marshall, who was a lawyer who helped
Brown versus Board.
Schools. Yep. And I saw that in my classes, because I was in AP classes. My parents were always stressing education, and in my AP classes, I wondered why I was only one of a handful of people of color in the class, whereas Garfield was it was half and half. It was predominantly, one half was African American, the other was white. But why was it that I was only one of very few people of color in these classes? And I realized from that class that this discrimination or this separation continued today. And I said, if a lawyer could end that, then there still needs to be lawyers now. And I was really passionate about becoming a lawyer for justice and really working towards racial equity and using a law degree to pursue further racial justice. So that's what really started my career path.
Well, when you work for the Commission on Justice, the issue of disparities in sentencing, the issue, but it gets down to basics. How you get charged. I mean, it isn't the police who charge you, it's the prosecuting attorney or the city attorney that charges you. And the disparities there. We know that if, depending on your color, you may get a misdemeanor, maybe a gross misdemeanor, but somebody else, someone of color, may get a felony on them. Those kinds of things that's the disparities that occur. But more power to you. And that's it. You're saying it kind of opens your eyes to what is going on. Well, that's what they're saying. If you want to make it through the justice system, have a carload of money, because the better you can afford, the better attorneys you can afford, the better you're going to come out in terms of. And I was on the board at the Public Defenders Organization, and so you're talking about indigent individuals who couldn't afford to get an attorney. We're hoping that they get a fair shake, because representation, when you get in the judicial system, criminal justice system, is vital, right? And and like I appreciate you sharing that. So in terms of the work that you did, and in terms of what you do, they're not totally vastly different, but because as a council member, you make policy, rules, etc. But so you spend that time. How much time is devoted as a council member at Tukwila? It's not a full-time job. I know that, right?
No. I have my full-time job, my 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then City Council. We have our meetings every Monday, and we start our meetings from about 5:30, and I think the longest it has gone was till 11 p.m. And we're lucky if we get out of there if our meeting is an hour. So I'm at least there from about 5 to 8 or 9, 10 every Monday. But then during the week, we're going to events, meeting with constituents, responding to emails, doing our research, doing our readings to get ready for the meetings on Monday. So it's a lot of work, but it is just part-time. Oh, well, yay!
There it is. This is one of the better ones that kind of make it diverse. I like that.
Thank you.
So I thought, I figured out how to do it. I have a green screen and all that. But so growing up Seattle, in the city, of course, Tukwila is, let's just be honest, it's right on the hip of Seattle. When you say You know, it's kind of like when I was in Atlanta. People say, "Oh, I live in Atlanta." You don't, but you live right next door in Covington, which is just like saying I live in Atlanta. Just like Tukwila is, might as well say you live in Seattle. However, like I said, the one great thing you have going for you is South Center, but that's another story. But so, what are the kinds of things? Or let me ask you this: what do your parents think about you running for office in your family? Your family, you know.
So my dad, and I don't know, I don't know if this is true for a lot of Filipinos, but they love politics. Filipinos, they're really into politics. And so when my dad realized or found out I was running, he was so excited. I guess I learned that one of his dreams was being the mayor of this small province in the Philippines that he used to live at in Cubao.
Yeah.
So he, you know, my parents, they sacrificed everything to bring us here to the U.S. Both of their families still live in the Philippines, and it's only my parents from their families that immigrated here. So they really had no ties, no connections. They gave up everything to bring their kids here. And what's really touching is that my dad and my mom got to see, you know, pieces of their history, pieces of their lives, live through their children. So I became a lawyer. My mom wanted to be a lawyer. My dad wanted to be a politician, and I became a politician. But in no way, shape, or form did I do it just because of them. But this is really, truly like what my calling was and what my path has been.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, because I wanted to prep you and give you an idea of what I was going to ask. You know, what was your call? How did you do it? Well, so to some degree, it's natural, but it's still daunting. I mean, you said you had reservations about it because of the way your mother was treated. And, you know, let's face it, most lawyers are white. Most lawyers are white men. Even though statistically, law schools across the country, 50% of the law school students are women. But guess what? 80% of them that get hired are white men. See, that's the thing. 20% of the women get hired for firms. Most people that I talk to that went to law school, you probably different, but they wanted to go into a firm, you know, become an associate, et cetera, and you rise up and you know, make the big money, get the big cases with the big firms. Perkins, I shouldn't mention any names, but you know what the big firms are. So, you know, but. And so that's beautiful because what you were doing for the commission was basically for the community, for the vast community, and the disparities and the sentencing guide, all of that stuff. So you serve. What committees do you serve on in Tukwila at the city council?
Yeah. I've served on pretty much every committee that there is. I'm currently the chair of the Planning and Community Development Committee. And this is the committee that deals with a lot of the building permits, land use, and economic development. So, you know, you talk about South Center, but there's plenty of other businesses happen, you know, all over Tukwila as well. So I'm the chair of that committee this year, and I also serve on the finance committee. And Deshaun Quinn is the current chair of the finance committee.
Yeah, well, that, you know, I know Deshaun and his family. As a matter of fact, I knew his dad real well. His father, Deshaun's father, used to hang out at the East Madison YMCA, and they used to have a statewide program in the state of Washington called Youth in Government. And Henderson, Deshaun's father, was elected governor for the state of Washington, African American, way back in the middle 70s, late, you know, I think it's around, middle 70s. Unbelievable. He came out of the East Madison Y over in the central area, and he ran in. They elected him governor, which kind of like y'all get your politics and your issues of governance. You get it honestly from your family. You from your family, Deshaun from his family. Really interesting. So you serve on several committees. You go until 11 o'clock at night sometimes. Okay. So what do you do for rest and relaxation, or how do you unwind? I mean, you got a full-time job, you got a home, you got, you know, I don't want to be too personal, but you got all of that to do. You got kids too, so you know, right?
Yeah. What do I do for relaxation?
You listen
Honestly,
to Rainier Avenue Radio
I do every Thursday at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Wow, like what I love doing right now, like my relaxation is both of my sons are in Little League.
Yeah, that's right. Hold, Cynthia, hold on to that. We're going to take a break. I want you to get back into that because you told me about that. Very good. So, hey, ladies and gentlemen, my very special guest, the Honorable Cynthia Delostrino Johnson, City Council member of the Tukwila City Council, the first and only Filipino ever elected there. And she ran for the first time and won. So, hey, if she can do it, you're not going to be able to do it, folks. She can do it, and she did it. Yeah, so we'll be right back. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Thank you.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not driving my sweet AMC Pacer through the car wash, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio .world. You missed a spot.
Northwest Film Forum's Collective Power Fund is now open for grant applications. Grants are starting at $2,000 up to $10,000 for individual or artist collectives. The annual grant cycle focuses primarily on supporting art that incites public dialogue, pushes boundaries, explores genre fluidity, speaks its truth through an authentic perspective, and is often non-traditional, anti-institutional, socially responsible, or disruptive of any existing structures and conventions. Learn more and apply at collectivepowernw.org.
Join Rainier Avenue Radio from 5 to midnight for Sunday evening sound sessions. Jazz from the Cabinets from Big Poppy.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Sergio LaCour's Love Line.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell her who we talking to.
Sage Prince and Just My Opinion.
This is Sage, and that's just about going to do it for the first half of Just My Opinion.
K-Fox Night Beat with Nasty Ness Rodriguez.
It's the beat of the Fox. K-Fox Night Beat, Nasty Ness.
You know what? You're going to listen from 5 to midnight. Just turn it on and don't stop. DJ Alibaba. The Underground Surround Sound Star Time with Paul
Thanks
Pearson.
for tuning in. My name is Paul Pearson.
Sunday
And
evening
this is
sound
Star
sessions on Rainier Avenue Radio. Trust me, you'll be listening the entire time from 5 to midnight. Sunday evening, your sound session on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Women Empowerment Talk Radio, your roadmap to business success. Tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, providing resources and sharing motivational experiences from the everyday entrepreneur. Tune in Women Empowerment Talk Radio every Sunday, 3 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Feel uneasy on your feet? Need assistance to walk? Do you use a wheelchair and want to stand more? What if you could stand stronger and feel steadier on your feet? What would this mean for your daily life and those closest to you? Join our dance-based walking program to improve balance, coordination, strength, and stamina. Wednesdays, May 18th to June 22nd at 2 p.m. at the iconic Columbia City Theater in partnership with Rainier Avenue Radio and Hugs That Empower nonprofit. Walkers, wheelchairs, and canes welcome. If you can stand and bear weight for even just 5 seconds, come dance to walk with Tango Stride.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
Taking a very short break. Thank you, Daniel. Daniel's doing a great job. To confirm, we don't have a confirmation yet, Cynthia. I'm trying to get, I'm getting into the area of getting you high-powered politicians on the air. I'm trying to work on getting Mayor Bruce Harrell, another person of Asian descent, on to talk about being the mayor. So, Cynthia, let me ask you this. Come on. And what I was going to ask you is, do your sons even know what you do as a council person? They want to go play Little League Baseball, and they want the uniform, and they want the cleats, and they want all that stuff. But do they know what you do?
At this point, I think that they do. So my kids, so it started when I was running for city council. They would come and doorbell knock with me. They loved having the campaign literature and knocking on the door.
Right.
So it started there. And then, you know, I bring my kids to events and things from, you know, different times. And I've been invited to speak at my kids' school too, as just like helping kids understand what city council does. And then recently we were invited to this Seattle-based, I want to say like a YouTube channel or something like that called Hi Ho Kids.
Oh, really?
And it was like a show and tell. And so my son, it had to tell other kids what I did as a city council member. So I hope they know.
Well, that's beautiful. That's great. Yeah, that's amazing. It's always interesting when I talk to individuals in public office what their kids go through and what they're doing. And but then I was thinking about it, you know, without, you know, blowing your cover here or whatever, but I said, Cynthia Delostrino Johnson, mayor of Tukwila. That has a real nice ring to it. Have you thought about moving up in terms of public office? I'm not, you know, I don't want to create dissension with you and the mayor, but you know.
You know, I've thought about it. I don't know how I feel about it right now. I just want to do the best that I can as a city council person, and, you know, see what I decide next year, because next year will be the year that I will need to decide whether I'm going to run again or not. And the mayor position is open, or I've heard that the mayor position in Tukwila will be open next year. So, you know, honestly, if there's anybody here who is in Tukwila, they're consider running. I hope that, you know, through anything, I hope that, like what John said, I was the first woman of color, first Asian American, first person of Filipino descent to be on the Tukwila City Council. When I ran for the first time, I was able to win. And I really, truly believe that in representation on council and the city of Tukwila is a place where there's majority people of color, and, you know, having diverse voices at the table is so important. I hope anybody listening who lives in Tukwila and is interested will contact me and ask about the process. And I really hope that I could just open doors for many people who have even just considered it, don't know how to do it. I just want to be a resource to you and an encouragement to go into public office. It's so important.
I appreciate that, because that was one of the things I was going to ask you is, hey, if I can do it, you can do it too, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's how that works. Somebody lit the fire literally under you, but you, like I said, you come through it naturally, and that's beautiful, because, you know, politics can be exciting, politics can be boring, politics can be for risk takers. There's an investment in time and resources. And oftentimes when I talk to people who've been in politics, your time isn't your own, because you're there to serve the people. And that's the whole issue. And, you know, and I think you learned that early on from your family, to serve, you know, and that's what's really needed. And when you talk in terms of our population of being Asian, we're moving up. We're over 23 million people now. In Seattle alone, there's over 84,000 persons of Asian descent. And it's changing, because now, let's face it, we're counting people who are biracial, multiracial, and the segment of that population is Asian. I mean, look at Marilyn Strickland, Filipino and Korean and African American, Bruce Harrell, Japanese and African American, and, you know, etc. And we have other people who are running for office who are biracial or multiracial. So it's going to be real interesting. And by 2045 or something, the majority of people in this country are not going to be white. They're going to be people of color. So let me ask you this. What are some of the major initiatives that you're facing? I mean, economic development is, to me, is what we're going to have to really dig our heels into and really do the heavy lifting, because we have not fully recovered economically from this pandemic. You know, So what do you think what is your initiative on that? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I did come prepared to talk about people always ask me, what are the three biggest things that are happening in Tukwila right now? One of the things that I wanted to highlight is there's actually a raise the minimum wage campaign happening in Tukwila. And it's not something that the city council is spearheading. It's something that the community is spearheading. They're doing a public initiative. Right now, they're gathering signatures to raise the minimum wage. So you may remember, I can't remember what year it was, but SeaTac raised their minimum wage, and then Seattle raised their minimum wage. So Tukwila is literally sandwiched in between SeaTac and Seattle. But yet, if you work, right here in Tukwila, you don't receive, the same wages that folks in right next door, SeaTac or Tukwila are making. And especially nowadays when things are more expensive, it's just
that's beautiful. I mean, because I think you understand the handwriting's on the wall. You got major corporations got a foothold in South Center. You got major Nordstroms, etc., who are making profits. Let's be honest, or else their doors wouldn't be open. Let's be honest. Yeah, they took a hit a little bit, but they're still moving forward in terms of that. And it just, to me, makes sense. If you can get somebody to a minimum wage that's higher than their living circumstance, they're going to spend that money. Where are they going to spend it? Well, hey, let's go to South Center. Let's go to Macy's. Let's go to Nordstrom's. Let's go to. It makes sense. But then again, too, the other aspect I was going to ask you: what about public safety? We need to pay for that. I know it's an issue, and so. What is your thoughts on that, public safety? There's a huge issue in Seattle, that, so
yeah.
But it spills over.
So one of the things that I didn't know before coming on council, but one of the biggest jobs that we have as council is deciding the city's budget. And I didn't know this, but public safety, our police and our fire department make up the bulk of what we pay for as a city. The interesting thing about Tukwila is that because we have this small nighttime population. The nighttime population are those who live and lay their heads down, in Tukwila is about 20,000, a little over, we're growing. But during the day, we're 100,000.
Yeah, because of South Center.
And so we have to find that delicate balance of how many police officers, how many firefighters do we need in the city to, protect people who come down here during the day, but also those at night, and how do we strike that balance? Brings me to another big topic or big thing that we're working on city council this year, and in many other cities, it's a budget year. We are deciding a budget, and the projections right now are showing that Tukwila is probably going to be in a deficit. Some from the pandemic, but honestly, right now, and this is happening across the country, but the cost of services, the cost of gas, everything is getting more expensive.
Yeah, inflation. They're saying it's inflation. Yeah.
Exactly, and so even for the same level of services, prices are going up. So we're going to have to make some really difficult decisions this year about what kind of services are we going to cut back on, or where are we going to raise additional revenue. And that's one of the biggest jobs that city councils do across the state. In every single city, we got to pass a balanced budget. But public safety is really important. But given that I work in the court system, I understand a little bit more. But one of the biggest issues is like mental health, substance abuse, not necessarily the violence, but people committing petty crimes or people committing crimes because of underlying mental health or substance abuse issues. And what are we doing as a city to prevent crime in that way? Have we been doing, investing in programs or supports for people to get the help that they need prior to committing a crime. That's something that I'm really interested in, because as far as I know, our system of jailing and incarcerating people is very harmful to communities, particularly communities of color, particularly the African American community. So, we got to find other ways. We got to find ways to keep people.
You're a magnificent speaker, and you open the door. What about homelessness? That's the other issue that's just daunting to Seattle. What is it like? Has it had a major impact on Tukwila?
It is. I mean, yeah,
it's everywhere. I know.
it's literally everywhere. It's not just Seattle. How we are dealing with it, we have a special unit within our Tukwila Police Department that approaches it in more of a human services way, offering people services. Of course, we have laws around not being able to, on city property, you can't build an encampment. So they have to come in and ask you to leave and give you time to leave, but also offer services at the same time. I'm really proud of the work that our police department has done in that realm. But, they homelessness is tied to bigger issues. The cost of living, the cost to be able to rent is, even people with good jobs, like good paying jobs, can't afford to live in Tukwila anymore because of the cost of renting out here. It's getting really expensive to live. Finding affordable housing is one of the biggest issues that we're facing here in Tukwila. One of the things that we as a council were looking at this year is tiny home projects coming into Tukwila. And so, that's a potential solution, creating housing that's affordable or free for people who are trying to get off the streets and into housing.
And that's really interesting, because I've had a chance to talk to Mayor Harrell previously before he was on the city council. But I agree with him. When you talk in terms of homelessness in this area, it's a regional issue. It's not Seattle. It ain't Tukwila. It isn't Bellevue. It's everybody. It's a regional issue. It's actually, if you talk about regional, I'm talking about expanding the geographical. It's got to have that kind of demarcation, because it's a national problem too. But let's do it with our area. It can't just be Tukwila alone. It can't be just Seattle alone. It can't be Kent, Auburn, etc. It's got to be a whole, as they say, I love this term, plethora of cities and communities that get involved with this, because it ain't going away.
Yeah.
It isn't going away. And people don't understand. There are people who are homeless through no fault of their own. They didn't grow up thinking that, oh yeah, well, I'm going to be homeless at some point in my life. That's not true. And especially when you have children, that has to be devastating as a parent. So now we're talking about children. What about education? You got some fairly good, public education going on in Tukwila. People don't know that, but what are your thoughts about education, and what is the relationship between Tukwila and the local school district? I think it's you got a couple of school districts there, right? At least two or three. Yeah.
Yeah, in Tukwila we have, so most people who live in Tukwila fall within the Tukwila School District, but we do have parts of Tukwila that fall within Highline.
Oh yeah, Highline, right? Okay.
As well. But yeah, I'm fond of our schools, our kids here. We've just have some of the most amazing students. I was actually up at the high school last Friday, where myself, other city council members, our judge, our council member at the county level, Councilmember Up the Grove, and our state legislators, Hackney and Berquist, they were all invited by the high school students to come to a sort of like community forum where we talked about some of these issues that we're talking about today, like the minimum wage, the cost of living. And man, the students are so smart, and so many of the what I love about the students in Tukwila and what a lot of them share in common is many of them are immigrants or refugees from other countries. And so they have this bond of like, even if they didn't come from the same country, they all share this, like, it's almost like you walk in and you're in the middle of the world. Like the whole world is there in Tukwila. And it's just one of the most amazing things about our schools is how diverse they are.
Isn't the Foster High School in Tukwila?
Yeah.
Isn't that part of stuff? Yeah. The Bulldogs, but they're not the original ones. Yeah, I know they're purple and white too. They're purple and white.
Yeah.
And, Foster. No, we went to the original one. So, and August, I think it's August 27th is the centennial celebration.
Yeah.
At Garfield, that was delayed because of pandemic. I will, if you don't have the information, I'll forward to you, because I think I'm still on the committee. Who knows? But anyway, so now, would you want your kids, your sons, to get involved? You said they go out and they went to doorbelling and they were handing out the little giveaways and all that kind of stuff. Have they mentioned that they would like to follow in your footsteps, or is it too early yet? Because I know you said they're into Little League baseball and all that good sports stuff.
I think it might be, well, I don't know. Like, they haven't said that they want to be on city council. I think one of my sons, he just says he wants to be famous, and like whatever that means, I don't know. It would be so, like, I just want them to be engaged. I just want them to care and understand why city council is important, why being civically engaged is important, why being involved in your community is important. Like, they don't have to be in a position like this. They don't have to run for elected office. I just want them to care about their community. Like, that's if that's all that this teaches them or aspires them to do, then I feel like I've done my job as a parent.
Very good. Do that. So like I said, there's so many advantages to a city like Tukwila. It's growing. Seattle is busting at the seams. Cost of living in Seattle is just through the roof. That's unfortunate too. Tukwila looks to be the best of all worlds right now. It's close to the city because you got that major freeway right down the heart of it. But you're right next to it. You go Renton. You're up the road from Kent Auburn, which are growing communities. So Tukwila, like I said, anybody says Tukwila, said, do people actually live there? And you kind of outlined it. There are maybe 100,000 plus people there during the day, but at night there's only a few thousand because those people work at South Center. So, do you have much interaction with the businesses and the business people at South Center? I should have asked that earlier, because some of the tax initiatives that you will be involved in will impact them, right? Land use and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I don't get out enough, probably, and the pandemic definitely didn't help with that. But now, as things are opening back up, we're having more, meetings, being invited to more openings of businesses, which are really exciting when businesses choose to have their business in Tukwila. I think that's the most exciting thing to me is like welcoming and meeting these new business owners who are starting new businesses and choosing Tukwila as their home. But yeah, in terms of the minimum wage increase, I know there's been engagement with the businesses on that, and finding that good balance between recognizing the importance of raising the wages, but also recognizing how it might impact small businesses. That's a conversation that we've had as well.
Very good. So what's the employment picture look like for the city of Tukwila? If You know, I want to go work someplace that's vibrant but not huge, where people see each other and they know each other. Is that a good place for me to go to apply for a job at? You know, Tukwila. You know, what's your employment picture look like there for the city?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of jobs. There's tons of jobs in Tukwila. I would really encourage people to look at jobs. There's mostly the service industry. Like in Tukwila, it's mostly service, hospitality. But yeah, I mean, the best thing about Tukwila is that there are so many different kinds of jobs. I mean, come work for the city.
That's what I was going to ask. What about
we've got some jobs open too. A lot
the
of
mayor. The mayor's office is open. Somebody may want to apply. So, how many? Do you know how many in your workforce for the city of Tukwila, fire, police, etc.? I know you have probably park department, that kind of stuff, right? All the departments. Do you know offhand? I should have done the research, but I don't know this logo, huh?
I don't know off the top of my head how many people actually work for Tukwila.
Okay, for Tukwila. Okay, because like I said, I should have done the research, but I was trying to get this doggone logo up here where
it looks nice.
No, so we're going to be wrapping it up soon. So again, you kind of share with us your road, into politics, but not necessarily politics per se, but serving the community, going into law. And like I said, I appreciate you mentioning the fact that this country has a very hard time talking about race because of slavery, because of genocide, and because of the way it treats immigrants. When you think about it, that's really, to me, the essence of it. And it's based on the model of white supremacy. That's what the whole mantle of slavery was about. That was the whole mantle of genocide against Native Americans. And that's how, the yellow horde, the yellow codes, just like the black codes, and I got a sign that my mom gave us a picture that I looked at, and they had a little soda shop in Sacramento, California. And I said, who are all these African-American men? She says, they're not African-American men. They're all Filipinos. I said, what? And she said, the only reason why they're at their store is the only place that they could get served is in her store. And then I saw a sign, no Filipinos allowed. Sacramento, California, the state capital for the state of California. And the first people of color from Asia came from the Philippines. I mean, I don't know. It just strikes me as so devastatingly ironic, but so wrong in many ways. But yeah, there were places that you could not go if you were, and because Filipinos were looked at differently, because of the issue of darker complexion, different language base. All of those things are contributing to that racist model. And that, and like I said, I really appreciate your drawing all those things out and why you do what you do. And I really, it's really heartening to see somebody at your age too, grabbing the mantle, because guys my age, we old dudes, we're kind of trying to hold on and getting people like you and Toshiko and people. Yeah,
that's why it's so important. And I just love when you give me this opportunity and just having that collaboration between, your generation, my generation. That connection is so important. One of the things, so this was the other thing on my list of happenings in Tukwila that's big. We are designing, or we're planning on building a intergenerational center in Tukwila. That's actually going to be a place where teens and seniors can, they'll have their separate space, but also a space where they could collaborate,
interact,
and have teaching and idea generation, the dialogue that you and I are having.
That is incredible. That'd be great. What really quickly, we got about a minute left. But what's the timeline? Within the next few years, you're going to be looking at a a facility and building in that center? Yeah.
We've already been doing a lot of community engagement around it. We received money from the legislature this past year to design it. And the biggest cost is going to be construction, but hopefully if we can get a lot of partners, because I don't think with the way the economy is that the city could pay for this on their own. But there are a lot of grants and private public opportunities out there to get this center built.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful. You got Macy's, you got Nordstrom's, you got all those companies out there too. I mean, Red Robin, Famous Dave's, Hey, you got Best Buy. I'll show that. You got all those stores out there. But Cynthia Delostrino Johnson, City Council member of the Tukwila City Council. You're a wonderful guest. I really appreciate talking to you. You're sharing with us. We're going to have you back again. Of course, I would like to just offer that to you. Maybe you may want to bring your kids on and talk about politics. No, just kidding, but that would be great. Continued success to you.
Thank you.
Continued success to represent, as they say. You representing. Cynthia Delostrino Johnson, thank you very much. You're listening to Seattle Here and Now on Rainier Avenue Radio. I got to do my plug. Rainier Avenue Radio. Stay tuned for Metro Sports Weekly. Juan Cotto, I believe, will be your guest host. All right. Cynthia, thank you very much. Have a great evening.